In today's fast-paced world, overthinking is a prevalent problem that prevents many people from achieving significant progress. In this age, we are always inundated with countless options for knowledge and uncertainties that result in a vicious circle of analysis paralysis and failure-related fear. The pursuit of perfection frequently leads us to second-guess every choice we make, thinking that additional preparation will guarantee success, while in reality, no amount of preparation can remove doubt or ensure the optimum result while awaiting the right circumstances. Inaction only results in lost chances and inaction. In order to escape this cycle, we must change even in the midst of uncertainty, shift your attention from over-analyzing to acting. Encourages development, boosts self-esteem, and offers insightful input that planners. Progress cannot be achieved by itself. It is frequently found in flawed action that is not unending. Readiness by embracing flaws and realizing that errors are a natural element of the path we take to empower ourselves to advance and bring about long-lasting change. Success is attained by taking risks rather than by having perfect plans. The first step in learning and adjusting along the road is accepting the challenges, which is why. Despite the fact that comfort growth frequently flourishes in discomfort, in today's environment, there is a natural tendency for many people to reject this idea. In order to avoid hardship and find comfort, we live in a time when convenience, security, and convenience are frequently given priority, which results in a mindset that avoids suffering at all costs but promotes growth. Is rarely found without challenge. Rather, it is found via adversity. That we cultivate fortitude, strength, and clarity. The Stoic thinkers, such Marcus Aurelius, highlights how difficulty may help people develop their character, and they were wise enough to realize that discomfort is a necessary aspect of life, and that it is, when we face adversity, we learn about our actual potential through how we handle it. The natural response is frequently to fight against the dread of failure, rejection, or pain. But it's precisely these uncomfortable moments that force us to comfort zones and make us face our shortcomings. Development doesn't happen in a level of comfort, but when we are put to the test, whether by obstacles, uncertainty, or struggles and sufferings, test our presumptions, convictions, and abilities, compelling us to reconsider our priorities and acquire new abilities in. We discover the roots of personal growth in this agony. It's not the pleasant times that mold us, but the times when we are pushed over our limitations are among the main advantages of resilience is developed by accepting discomfort. Life is full of hurdles, setbacks, and uncertainties, as well as those who can successfully negotiate these. Despite the fact that challenges frequently arise stronger, resilience isn't something we possess from birth, but it is developed by adversity when we, despite suffering, failure, or discomfort, we learn to adjust, get back up, and keep going. Despite challenges, people who shun hardship typically lack the strength essential to manage upcoming difficulties, while those who embrace discomfort develop a stronger sense of inner fortitude and tenacity. Challenges also offer clarity. When things are simple, we may grow complacent, preoccupied, and disengaged. Adversity frequently forces us to consider what really matters and what our goals are, which is where our purpose lies. Worth pursuing, what principles cannot be compromised, and what we are prepared to give up in order to avoid discomfort distractions and concentrate on the important things. It's during these difficult times that we acquire a clearer understanding of our identity, values, and goals. Growth occurs when we are put to the test and compelled to examine ourselves, not when life is easy and predictable. The quest for comfort might result in stagnation if we put ease and security. We restrict our possibilities. Comfort zones offer momentary respite, but they additionally, discomfort keeps us from realizing our greatest potential for progress. Since it requires perseverance, effort, and occasionally pain without obstacles, we would never acquire the bravery, inventiveness, and tenacity required to accomplish significant success. It is discomfort that forces us to change, adapt, and become the greatest versions of ourselves. The Stoics offer timeless insight on this subject. Taught that we have the ability to accept misfortune as a necessary part of life and respond to it with virtue, they urged us to see adversity as chances for development rather than as things to be avoided. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius spoke a great deal about the significance of embracing life's challenges he recognized that discomfort was a normal and essential aspect of the human experience, and by accepting it, we might develop morality, knowledge, and a fuller comprehension of contemporary life. The idea of discomfort there is growing evidence that psychological research supports the idea that catalysts for growth are prepared to confront challenging circumstances and venture beyond their comfort zones, tend to have greater levels of personal growth, contentment, and accomplishment. Although comfort zones provide reassurance, they rarely offer long-term meaning or fulfillment. Comes from conquering our fears and overcoming obstacles, and the agony we experience that enables us to realize our actual potential and purpose in the end. Accepting suffering is about changing our perspective, realizing that difficulties are inevitable and not something to be avoided, encounters that mold our personalities and aid in our development. When we embrace discomfort, we expose ourselves to fresh chances for resilience, personal growth, and after all, easy is never the path to self-mastery and growth. However, in the conflict beyond it, number 2 detaches to rule over the Stoic. One of the most effective strategies for controlling emotions is detachment. Taking charge of your life and controlling your emotions does not imply indifference or apathy, but a conscious disengagement from the turmoil of outside events. And Stoicism of emotional response emphasizes that real power comes from, by practicing, we can take charge of our inner lives instead of letting our surroundings rule us. With detachment, you can face life's obstacles with composure and clarity. Fundamentally free from the chaos of unbridled emotions, detachment entails understanding the difference between what you can and cannot control of life. Tension originates from attempting to control things that are out of our control, including other people's viewpoints. You can let go of this because of the way things turned out, or because of the past. Pointless battle to save your energy for your thoughts, which are what really count. Behaviors and decisions, such as when someone gives you unjust criticism. Detachment entails realizing that their statements represent their viewpoint rather than your value. This attitude keeps you from emotions are normal, but when they get in the way of your ability to react logically, they have the power to influence others, impair judgment, and cause rash judgments. By establishing a buffer between stimuli and response, detachment enables you to evaluate circumstances impartially. Imagine being pushed by rage during a heated fight. If you lack detachment, to express regret for intensifying the conflict. With detachment, you take a moment to consider your feelings without allowing them to rule you and reacting in a controlled manner. This self-mastery improves relationships, judgment, and general health. It takes discipline and experience to acquire detachment, but one useful technique is examine your thoughts and feelings on a regular basis by questioning yourself. Journaling or meditation might be beneficial, whether they are in line with your values and objectives. Another strategy is to practice until you develop clarity and break free from harmful patterns. By establishing oneself in the now, mindfulness helps you stop worrying about the past or the future. You can more effectively control emotional triggers in the present, which is a crucial component of accepting impermanence, and the fact that life is ever-changing is detachment. Because holding on to people's belongings or results only causes them to suffer when you may act with confidence and purpose, when you let go of the need for particular outcomes, because you know that this mindset promotes the idea that value is not dependent on any outward accomplishment. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks without becoming depressed or frustrated. Detachment is not about suppressing feelings, yet controlling them allows you to experience them profoundly. Seeing your feelings and allowing them to pass without attachment will keep you from becoming overwhelmed. Acquire the flexibility to select your answers carefully. This is the core of Stoicism, living with integrity and strength in a society where reason rules instead of instinct. Detachment is a superpower in a world full with emotional traps and distractions. Allows you to concentrate on the things that are important and the fortitude to overcome obstacles. Having the discernment to take decisive action, developing detachment is difficult but has significant life benefits. Number of peace, purpose, and actual control over your inner life. The art of letting go of the three. Control what you can. Uncertainty abounds in uncontrollable existence, and many of our problems arise from attempting to control things that are out of our grasp. The Stoics recognize this and stress the significance of concentrating on. This technique involves letting go of the rest and focusing on what we can manage. Not only about accepting things, but also about taking back your time and focus for learning to take charge of what you can and letting go of what really matters, the uncontrollable. You open the door to a more peaceful, purposeful existence and resiliency. The essential idea of this concept is the contrast between control and Epictetus promoted the idea that life can be divided into two parts. Classifications of things that we can and cannot control with our thoughts and actions and decisions belong to the first group, whereas outside circumstances that are other people's thoughts and results are the result of the second's endeavor to regulate the uncontrollable is like attempting to hold water in your hands. Realizing this just makes you frustrated and hopeless. By making a distinction, you may concentrate on the things you can control and accept the rest with grace. Letting go of the uncontrollable is about directing your energy, not about being passive or giving up. Endeavors where they will be most effective, such as when you are powerless you can prepare for the weather, but you have no control over how other people treat you. However, you are in charge of how you react. And adopting this perspective changes you from a victim of situations to a proactive participant in your life, rather than squandering time. Instead of fretting about the future, you focus your attention on taking deliberate action. Managing our emotional attachments, which we frequently link to our happiness, is one of the hardest things about this practice. To results or individuals who are beyond our control, as praying for expecting a certain outcome or someone's approval might cause disappointment if such expectations are unmet. Letting go means letting go of the need for something, but it doesn't imply you cease caring. Control by distancing oneself from results, which relieves unnecessary suffering, and preserve emotional equilibrium. Mastering the art of letting go necessitates self-awareness and the first step in practicing mindfulness is to determine what is stressing or anxious you. Consider whether you have any control over them. If not, practice intentionally letting go of them, breathing techniques, meditation, or you can analyze your feelings and refocus on what you can do by keeping a notebook. Change with time. This routine turns into a habit that helps you deal with life's uncertainty with poise and assurance. By managing what you can create a feeling of autonomy and purpose. You stop wasting time on conflicts you can't win or results you can't dictate. Instead, you make investments in what really counts: your development, your deeds, and this change in perspective changes how you perceive difficulties, turning them from sources of annoyance into chances for development. The art of letting go is a wise decision that enables you to live, not a sign of indifference. By perfecting this technique, you can live completely in the now, free from regret or fear. Acquire inner tranquility, as well as the flexibility to concentrate on the 4 main reasons why life is meaningful. Seeking development rather than comparing oneself is a losing game. Although it is a natural human urge, perfection comparison is frequently a trap. That causes needless misery in a world where social media rules, and seeing other people's accomplishments all the time can make you feel insufficient or behind. But it's a losing game to compare oneself to others, since it changes, shifting your attention from your personal development to external measurements, which are frequently flimsy or unimportant. By prioritizing progress above perfection, you might develop a sense of fulfillment. One of the primary issues is finding a purpose that is based on your individual journey. The problem with comparison is that it's always unfair to compare yourself to you. Frequently compare the outward accomplishments of others to your own hidden challenges, which leads to a warped perception of reality where you concentrate on what you need rather than recognizing your advantages, such as when you see someone reaching a milestone could make you feel unworthy. But you might not be aware of the obstacles they had to overcome to get there, or that such comparisons undermine their self-esteem and the sacrifices they make. Divert attention from the chase of perfection and what's really important for your own advancement. Increases the damage that comparison does, because perfection is unachievable. Ideal that makes aiming for perfection a recipe for disappointment and failure frequently results in burnout or procrastination because you become paralyzed by your fear of failing rather than pursuing a delusion, while concentrating on steady advancement enables you to make progress. Moving forward, even with tiny increments, every improvement, no matter how modest, adds value to your path and advances you toward your objectives. By selecting progress over perfection, changes your perspective from one of rivalry to personal and quantifiable. Self-improvement progress is about becoming a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. This viewpoint is more empowering than attempting to surpass someone else, because it emphasizes the things you can control with your actions and efforts. For example, when acquiring a new ability, comparing your development to your prior talents instead of breaking free. The mastery of others encourages resilience and motivation. It takes intentionality and focus to escape the comparison trap. To begin, acknowledge while you are evaluating the truth of those comparisons and evaluating yourself against others. Comparisons help you remember what is most important to you by reflecting on your values and objectives. Gratitude is. Another effective technique is to redirect your emphasis to what you have achieved and value in your life. Changing your mindset from one of scarcity to plenty is another powerful tactic. Reasonable, significant objectives. When your desires coincide with your own values, you are less susceptible to outside influences or diversions. Honor minor accomplishments. Throughout the journey, since these instances of recognition serve to reaffirm that progress, not perfection, is the key to success, by focusing on your own development and letting rid of comparisons. Recover your sense of direction and value in life. Life is a personal development process rather than a competition with others. And self-discovery, when you gauge your accomplishments by your progress instead of compared to other people's expectations, you feel more at ease, confident, and the harsh reality of how much time you are wasting is the 5th fulfillment. Time is your most valuable resource, yet it's also frequently the one that, unlike money or belongings, which we take for granted, time cannot be regained or substituted. Every time that goes by is lost forever, and this harsh reality makes one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life is how you spend your time. Many people squander this priceless resource on pointless diversions. Putting things off or engaging in activities that don't fit with their values or aims is one of people waste time because they believe they have plenty of it. Yet in reality, days evolve into weeks, and weeks become years, frequently without discernible advancement towards significant objectives. The propensity to put things off, stems from a delusion that there will always be more time in the future. But since life is uncertain, each understanding the limited nature of time, a squandered moment is one that you can never get back. Another popular method is to use time as a wake-up call to prioritize what really matters. Distraction is how people waste time, and in the digital era, it's simple to lose spending hours on social media, binge-watching television, or participating in useless pursuits that don't really bring anything to life whilst unwinding. And, while entertainment has its purpose, engaging in these activities excessively often leaves people feeling time lost to distractions is time lost to personal development. In order to maximize your time and pursue your dreams and meaningful relationships, you must change how you... The first step in changing your mentality and habits is to determine your priorities and consider what's most important to you, whether it's advancing your job, fostering connections, or becoming healthier, and match your everyday activities to those objectives. Establishing distinct priorities aids you in making deliberate decisions about how you spend your time, making sure that it is allocated to activities that will yield long-term. Learning to say no is another essential skill for contentment. Many people fill their schedules with commitments that don't support their objectives because they're afraid of disappointing other people. Yet accepting to everything frequently entails saying no to yourself in order to preserve your time. Limits and the guts to turn down assignments or commitments that don't fit. Making the most of your time can also be achieved through awareness in relation to your priorities. Being present enables you to give your all to whatever you're doing, whether it's working or spending time with loved ones or leading a calm, attentive lifestyle, lowers the propensity to squander time by concentrating on the present moment instead than focusing on the past or fretting about the future. The harsh reality of time always passes, whether you make good use of it or not. By accepting this fact, you may decide to stop waiting and focus your attention on the things that are really important. For the ideal time and act immediately, since every second is a chance to produce, time cannot be regained, so live life with purpose and flourish. Consider the sixth stillness as strength and learn how to use it to command. Quiet is sometimes misinterpreted as a sign of inactivity or weakness. Yet in actuality, in a world where noise is everywhere, it is a tremendous source of strength. Conversation, incessant diversions, the capacity to accept stillness, and silence can help you stand out, since it enables you to watch, think, and react with. Instead of being impulsive, intention is a strong technique for controlling your ECT and creating inner. One of the biggest benefits is being resilient and in charge of any circumstance. Of quiet is its capacity to allow for observation when you stay. Being quiet makes you a better listener and a more astute observer of your environment. Silence improves perception, enabling you to pick up on characteristics like tone and body that others would miss. This increased awareness provides you with a strategic advantage, whether in verbal or unspoken dynamics. Discussions, partnerships, or leadership through increased listening and speaking less gives the impression that you are confident and considerate, which comes naturally. Command, respect, and quietness, as well as encouraging introspection, which is crucial for in times of stillness, you can reflect on your own development and decision-making, your motivations, feelings, and ideas without outside intervention. This self-examination aids you match your behavior to your ideals and long-term objectives. For instance, when faced with a tough option, spending some time to sit quietly enables you to reflect carefully and refrain from making snap decisions. Your capacity to act with confidence and purpose is strengthened by this clarity of mind. Stillness is especially strong in situations involving confrontation or severe pressure when emotions are running high. Silence can act as a buffer, keeping you from saying or doing anything you might later come to regret rather than responding to. An air of control and poise is produced by provocation while remaining composed and silent. This frequently agitates people, giving you the advantage. For example, silence during an argument can reduce tension and show maturity. Silence and stillness make it simpler to guide the discussion toward resolution. Demand self-control, particularly in the fast-paced, globally linked world of today. Begin by adding deliberate quiet times to your daily schedule. Such meditation, journaling, or even just sitting quietly can help your mind learn to accept stillness and cultivate resilience in the face of distractions, and also learn to avoid the temptation to fill in every blank. Strategic pauses during conversations not only help you collect your thoughts, but quiet is another method to increase the impact of your remarks. Save energy because talking and responding all the time might sap your emotions, and by deciding when and how to participate, you psychologically save your energy for what genuinely important. This self-control not only improves your concentration, but also ultimately conveys to others an impression of confidence and authority. Silence is a presence in and of itself that expresses more than just the lack of sound. By learning the art of silence, you can develop inner strength, confidence, and knowledge. Command authority without using violence, influence others without exercising domination, and live a graceful existence. When used effectively, silence can be your greatest ally in accomplishing both. The seventh rule of personal and professional success is to own your excuses. Actions or perpetually stuck excuses are a hindrance to progress, and success are frequently used as excuses for failure or inaction. Although they could offer short-term comfort, they come at a high cost. You're caught in the same habits that keep you from realizing your full potential and taking responsibility for your actions. Whether they result in achievement or failure is an essential step in escaping stagnation and creating a life of purpose and advancement. The decision is straightforward. Accept responsibility or stay caught in a vicious loop of blame and justifications which frequently stem from fear. People who are afraid of failing, being judged, or facing the unknown may justify their unable to make remarks such as, "I don't have enough time," or "I'm not." On the surface, having talent may seem legitimate, but it may be a cover for a deeper reluctance to take on obstacles head-on. These justifications put you in a comfy zone where you avoid taking chances, but they also prevent you from facing your anxieties and accepting responsibility for your situation. You enable yourself to conquer challenges and accomplish your objectives by placing the blame on outside forces. Is another typical method by which people avoid accountability is by placing blame on other people or even misfortune for your failings. When there are outside obstacles, concentrating only on them deprives you of agency and makes you feel unable to take responsibility for your actions. Realizing that although you are powerless over anything, you are in charge of your replies. such as blaming your supervisor if you're unhappy with your career or the economy won't improve your circumstances, but accepting responsibility could entail learning new skills, networking, or taking a whole alternative route. It takes humility and self-awareness to take responsibility for your actions. It entails acknowledging this mentality change is freeing when you own up to your mistakes and grow from them rather than avoiding responsibility, because it substitutes the empowering of X with the annoyance of answers. You regain control over your life when you accept responsibility and make a plan for improvement. For example, if a project doesn't work out, you may develop and get ready for the future by thinking back on what you could have done differently. Obstacles. Getting rid of excuses also calls for self-control and accountability. Establish attainable objectives and keep yourself responsible. For meeting them, surround yourself with others that push you to develop instead of then allow your justifications to grow by forming routines like journaling or frequent self-evaluation. Can assist you in monitoring your development and determining any areas where you might be putting yourself behind with each action you do. Taking responsibility for your acts boosts your self-esteem and fortitude. Making excuses is not worth it. Simply lost chances. It's a life consistently spent below your potential. You perpetuate a helpless mindset when you select an excuse over accountability. And stagnation, but taking responsibility for your actions creates opportunities for learning and growth. And fulfillment, it enables you to take control of your life and create a future that is determined by your actions and decisions. The choice is ultimately yours. You can keep creating excuses and staying in the same place. Or you can accept accountability and open up the endless potential for achievement and personal development. Number 8. Using death as a source of inspiration, live each day as though it were your last. A major subject in Stoic philosophy for a long time has been mortality, particularly in the works of individuals like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. The Stoics held that living a life of virtue and purpose requires contemplating death, according to Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations. Encouraged himself time and again to consider death's inevitable nature as a means of encouraged self-control, thankfulness, and a closer relationship with the here and now. Death is an inevitable part of life, although many of us live as. Despite the fact that time is endless, the Stoics taught us to be mindful of our death helps eliminate the illusions and diversions of immortality, compelling us to live each day with purpose and intensity, treating it as though it were. Although our final days may appear depressing, they are actually among the most freeing and strong resources at our disposal to promote resilience, clarity, and significance in our lives. Marcus Aurelius said in his Meditations that you could end your life on a positive note after considering his own mortality. Now, let it dictate your actions and words, and believe that this reminder wasn't a Marcus, a call to act with purpose and urgency rather than to fear death. Realize that the majority of us spend our lives preoccupied with unimportant issues and waiting for the ideal moment to act. But when we disregard the fact that death is inevitable, we frequently put transient pleasures, short-term objectives, and pointless pursuits over what really counts. For Marcus, contemplating death was not a source of anxiety or hopelessness, but rather a potent inspiration to live a more purposeful and clear life. Seneca wrote in his letters to writing that, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Lucilius repeated this idea. For Seneca, the knowledge of death was a means of dispelling the delusion of time and concentrating on the nowadays. We frequently think we have enough of time to accomplish our objectives, restore relationships, or develop morality. But the truth is that time is precious. Felt that thinking about mortality frequently and reminding ourselves that every day is the finest approach to live a meaningful life is a finite resource, and when we recognize this, we become more. Life becomes less about being deliberate about how we spend our time and energy, acquiring goods or honors, and more about living each day to the fullest. The Stoics taught that death it should be welcomed as a normal aspect of life, rather than something to be feared. By accepting that death is inevitable, we are compelled to face our own mortality and, in doing so, remove the diversions that frequently consume our thoughts, such as the Stoics' fear of dying. Rather than paralyzing us, arguments frequently prevent us from pursuing what really matters. Because of that anxiety, we are urged to embrace death as a natural part of life and to live each day as if it were. A change in perspective is necessary because most people act as though they have endless time to complete their tasks, objectives, and satisfy their aspirations. But when we face the truth of our mortality, we become more sensitive to what matters most. The Stoics observed this insight as a way to develop thankfulness. If we lived every day knowing, we would be less inclined to waste time on things that don't ultimately matter if we knew that our time was limited. The Stoics believe that this knowledge results in a more satisfying life because it compels us to concentrate on what is actually important in day-to-day living. The Stoics stressed that living as if it were our final day does not entail adopting a careless or hedonistic lifestyle. A life of virtue and self-control should result from this insight, rather than savoring fleeting pleasures that have no enduring worth. Thus, we are urged to concentrate on things that complement our cherishes, relationships, morality, and personal development. Marcus, according to Aurelius, think about the kind of life you would like to lead, and then emulate that. Life now by imagining what our ideal lives might have been if we were to pass away tomorrow. We would be more equipped to concentrate on what really counts. Practicing death reflection also fosters emotional fortitude. We are all susceptible to loss, which is one of life's most basic truths, whether it's losing loved ones, missing out on opportunities, or eventually dying. By facing this, by confronting reality head-on, we are better equipped to handle life's unavoidable obstacles. With the Stoics recognized that it is not death itself that is causing the equanimity, but rather the fear of dying. It causes pain when we relinquish the sense of control over life's uncertainty. We learn to accept what happens to us more readily, in addition to developing emotional fortitude by thinking about mortality, might also act as a reminder that everything is transient. Nothing in life, not even our accomplishments, relationships, or material possessions, is permanent. When we accept this reality, we are less likely to develop an attachment to things that will eventually fade away. Seneca, for instance, thought that the only method to He wrote that freedom came from letting go of our connection to things over which we have no control. The man who yearns for more is impoverished, not the one who has too little. We may more easily let go of the need for outside approval when we realize that we are all on borrowed time, and instead concentrate on developing character and morality. Eventually, the act of thinking about death is not about lingering on the end, but rather about, by accepting it as a motivator for enjoying life to the fullest, it inspires us to live with objective, to accept responsibility for our deeds, and concentrate on what really matters. When we accept our mortality, we break free from the delusion of infinite time, and we become more present when we accept the fact that every day is a gift. More deliberate and in line with what really gives life purpose, the harsh. Although death is inevitable, we can turn our fear of it into a source of strength by practicing Stoicism. Of purpose and strength. Number 9. Why popularity is overrated. The bravery too. In today's society, seeking acceptance and wanting to be liked makes one unpopular, frequently control our ideas and behavior. We live in a time when social affirmation, whether in the form of likes, following, or outside acknowledgement, appears to be the yardstick for success. And nonetheless, the Stoics have an alternative viewpoint, contending that the temptation to fit in is a trap that erodes our moral fiber and freedom. Pursuing social acceptance frequently results in a life of compromise. The harsh reality is that when we put other people's opinions ahead of our own principles and integrity, trying to win people over can keep us from being true to ourselves and doing what really issues. The Stoic answer is obvious, and having the guts to be unpopular is not a proof of. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously stated, weakness, but of strength if you want to be loved, don't sell yourself by doing this. Implied that seeking approval from others cannot be the foundation of genuine self-worth. Getting other people's praise frequently necessitates us to follow societal conventions and repress our convictions and put fame before morality. This ongoing demand for affirmation can make us forget who we really are, which might result in a life of Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic, is more superficial than genuine. Stated in a meditation to be happy with who you are and not want to change, or Marcus wants to be liked frequently, but he doesn't want it or fear your last day, originates from a need for outside approval or a fear of rejection. Felt that we lose control over our own life when we allow other people's opinions to guide our decisions. Instead, we must have the guts to be who we are, even if it means being by oneself or being disliked in an attempt to gain favor, frequently stems from a position of. The Stoics recognized that our attachment to other people's acceptance stems from our dread of not being accepted, acceptable, admired, or respected when we determine our own value based on how, as others see us, we cede our authority, enabling other forces to decide our choices and behaviors. So, pursuing popularity is a kind of slavery to opinions of others, which keeps us from acting in a way that is consistent with our ideals. Seneca spoke against this need for social acceptance in his writings to Lucilius, saying that we suffer more often in our minds than in our bodies. He realized that the feeling of rejection is frequently harsher than the fear of being rejected when we compromise our integrity and put the need to be liked first. The importance of other people's expectations over our own moral convictions, as Seneca taught detachment from letting go of the need for acceptance, is the source of freedom. And living according to our own values, the need to be loved frequently creates a vicious circle of self-censorship in which we conceal aspects of ourselves in order to blend in, repressing our respects, uniqueness, and viewpoints to prevent disagreement or criticism. But the Stoics understand that this self-censorship is dishonest. We lose our identity and become weaker when we compromise who we really are in order to be accepted. Our character becoming into individuals that care more about their appearance than their actual selves. It takes courage to live truthfully without worrying about how other people see us. According to the Stoics, genuine bravery arises from acting morally and sensibly, in spite of Epictetus famously remarked, "It is not he who scorns or hits you who makes you feel offended, yet you believe that these things are offensive. Hence, the only way that other people's ideas and judgments can control us is if we let them." According to the Stoics, we can only be truly strong when we acknowledge that we are not characterized by the opinions of others, and that we possess the ability to regulate our responses and decisions. When we try to fit in with others, it frequently results in mediocrity. Expectations. We frequently choose secure, well-liked options to win acceptance rather than pursuing what is special or meaningful. We put acceptance and comfort ahead of. The Stoics maintained that this trade-off between challenge and growth is untrue. Getting acceptance could make things easier for a while, but it comes at the expense of real, We may be able to avoid discomfort and rejection by pursuing popularity, but we prevent the development that results from sticking to our convictions. Marcus. In his musings, Aurelius considered the transient nature of public. What might disrupt your peace of mind and rob you of your freedom of choice is your approval. This quote serves as a reminder that it's not the absence of outside approval that bothers us, but rather our own perceptions. However, our commitment to it allows us to care too much about being loved. The Stoics taught that when outside factors control our mental health, the accepting that we have no control over other people's opinions is the first step toward achieving peace, and that instead we ought to concentrate on leading moral lives in the modern world. Social media platforms have only become more intense due to pressure to be liked. Increase the need for approval, as followers, likes and comments are now used to gauge one's worth. But the Stoics would contend that this reliance on outside validation is a trap that prevents us from going after what they think is important. Freedom is about letting go of the need to be liked and putting others' needs first. Authenticity, integrity and virtue in the end, the bravery to being unpopular is a sign of strength rather than weakness. It calls for the readiness to uphold our principles even in the face of rejection, or true freedom, according to the Stoics, arises from realizing that our value is not defined by the judgments of others, and we have the ability to live in compliance with what is right, rather than what is fashionable. In adopting this mentality, we liberate ourselves from the bonds of outside approval and lead lives that are more genuine, significant, and consistent with our greatest number of qualities. 10. From overanalyzing to taking action, stop preparing and begin. Overanalyzing is a typical obstacle that keeps many people from moving forward in their life in a meaningful way. Culture that places a greater emphasis on preparation and perfection, the urge to make infinite plans before. It can be intimidating to take action, yet the Stoic philosophy provides a paradoxical, yet action with a strong approach is more crucial than overanalyzing the harsh. The fact is that excessive preparation frequently results in inaction, which only makes our annoyances and setbacks, the outcomes we want to genuinely accomplish our objectives, must adopt the saint. Stoic concept of acting consistently and consciously. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, chose to avoid falling into the trap of overanalyzing. In his letters to Lucilius, he cautioned against the perils of over-planning. Seneca argued that we suffer more often in our dreams than in real life, realized that fear, specifically the fear of failing, is a common motivator for overthinking, anxiety of failing to be completely prepared, and the fear of making mistakes. But he said that the more we think about possible challenges, the longer we put off acting. This inaction is motivated by Seneca felt that overanalyzing causes anxiety and stagnation. Marcus Aurelius is another Stoic person who believes that development comes from embracing uncertainty and continuing on in spite of the unknown. This sentiment was reflected by the philosopher in his written reflections. Recognize that you have control over your thoughts, not external circumstances, and you will find strength here. Marcus stressed that although we have no control over outside situations in which we have influence over how we react, overthinking frequently results from a mistaken notion that we need total control over every aspect before behaving in accordance with the Stoics. Believe that only by embracing uncertainty and making a commitment can action be taken. Despite the absence of assurances, one of the main reasons why overanalyzing might be so crippling that we mistakenly assume we're perfect. Everything must be properly prepared and in alignment before we take any action, but life rarely follows the Stoics' teaching that perfection is a mythical ideal in such a neat manner. There will always be unknowns and challenges, and no amount of preparation can take into consideration every potential scenario. Claimed that there is no reason to cry over certain aspects of life when life as a whole demands. Tears, to put it another way, life is inevitably uncertain, and waiting for the ideal time or strategy frequently results in missed opportunities rather than endless clarity comes from preparing. And when we act, we receive feedback on whether success or failure that guides our next course of action, but prevents us from over-analyzing, caught in a never-ending circle of contemplation where the future is consistently portrayed as overwhelming and unclear. Seneca's answer was straightforward. We don't dare because things are hard, not because we don't dare. Things they are challenging by accepting the fact that we will never be fully control over the result. We liberate ourselves from the crippling necessity of pre-planning everything. Marcus Aurelius highlighted that even if a course of action is wrong, it is still better than he suggested that people stop arguing because they were paralyzed by overthinking during meditation. This quotation emphasizes the peril of what a good man ought to be. When we spend too much time thinking about what we should do, we run the risk of never taking any meaningful action. The Stoics recognized that a fear of failing is frequently the root cause of overthinking, yet this dread shouldn't stop us from doing, even if our actions are flawed, unclear and occasionally defective, that we acquire clarity. And another important factor that contributed to the Stoics' advocacy of action over contemplation was confidence, that it cultivates resilience when we face obstacles, failures, and unforeseen challenges. But rather than being immobilized by these barriers, we are compelled to change, learn, and develop. Nevertheless, overthinking frequently causes paralysis, since it focuses on fictitious worries about potential problems. The Stoics understood that the road to wisdom is not built with incessant preparation, but rather with accepting life's untidy realities. As Marcus Aurelius stated, the obstacle to put it another way, progress is action. What gets in the way gets out of the way. Obstacles are chances to act and overcome, not reasons to give up. Additionally, over-analyzing keeps us focused on an idealistic future that is far off, rather than the Stoics of the present, especially Marcus Aurelius, emphasized the significance of concentrating on the things we can influence with our current thoughts, behaviors, and decisions in he devised meditations that will allow you to end your life at this moment. Decide what you say and do, and the Stoics saw that over-analyzing. It keeps us from living in the moment because we are always thinking for the future and lose sight of